I said I had a trust fund because I did. I just didn't say, when I got it.
And what's wrong with having a trust fund too?
Listen, I would have been stoked to have a huge trust fund. I don't care where the money comes from. I'll spend the same. 100%.
Did you make your money then?
Playing poker.
You made it all playing poker?
Yeah.
Wow, that is insane.
His peak, he was everywhere. A man surrounded by fire and flesh, guns, girls, and gold. The self-proclaimed king of Instagram, Dan Bilzerian. He claimed it all came from poker and from guts, but behind the facade of bravado, there were questions, holes in the story, and money, someone else's money, keeping the engine running. He wasn't just an influencer, he was a businessman. Or at least, he said he was.
I think it's one of those things where I think also people don't really understand too much about business, and they look at it like, oh my God, the company lost $50 million in a year, and it's like, well, Uber lost $5 billion in a quarter. You know what I mean? Like, some companies lose money. Most companies lose money when they start. The headlines were like, Dan Bilzerian was faking everything. And it's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like, I was famous for being rich.
Ignite, CBD oils, e-cigarettes, vodka, and even water bottles. A brand built on his lifestyle. And when the numbers stopped adding up, Dan didn't just lose followers. He lost the one thing he couldn't buy. We know him as the man flexing guns, girls, and the rich life. But his story didn't start here. It all started in Tampa, Florida. Dan Brandon Bilzerian was born in 1980 into privilege, not poverty. His father, Paul Bilzerian, was a Wall Street corporate raider. Brilliant, aggressive, and eventually convicted. Paul made millions manipulating companies. Then he lost it all, sort of. The government came for his fortune, but some of it disappeared. Locked in trusts and secured offshore. Dan never talked about struggle because there wasn't any, at least not yet. He would later claim he built everything from scratch, but the scratch came with a six-figure safety net. Dan wanted to prove himself. He wanted to be a man. So he joined the military. But not just any branch, he joined the Navy SEALs. But SEAL training isn't about image, it's about limits, pain, and repetition. Or better said, as mental collapse. Dan made it far, weeks into the brutal training pipeline, but then, at once, gone. He was dropped from the program. He later blamed a safety violation. But insiders said it was attitude, authority, and Dan, never a good mix.
2 days before graduation, like, I did the whole thing, and I did the whole thing 2 times. Well, a little more than 2 times. So
how do you go through it a second time? And you're talking about you went through Hell Week twice.
yeah, I finished 2 Hell Weeks, and I was actually in 3 different classes. So the first time I made it, it was like 3 or 4 weeks after Hell Week, and then I got rolled back. Second time I went, all the way through the entire course, 2 days for graduation, then got rolled back all the way to the beginning of dive phase, which is basically, like, I did 4 months of the training again, and then at the end, then they just admin dropped me.
He enrolled at the University of Florida, where he followed a business study, but the classrooms didn't hold him either. He was already chasing a different kind of education: poker, Vegas, and risk. The cards didn't care who his father was, they only cared how far he'd go to win. For Dan, it wasn't just about playing hands. He was studying the entire room and the psychology behind it. For the first time, he saw a way to build something of his own, not from nothing, but from myth. He wasn't a prodigy, he didn't win every game, but he learned, fast and obsessively. While others slept, he played. He turned recklessness into rhythm. Online forums buzzed with his name. Some called him a whale, others a myth, a rich kid burning trust fund cash. But Dan leaned in. He fed the rumor, because in poker, perception is leverage. He claimed to make 10 million in one night. But the exact numbers? No one could prove them. He wasn't just winning chips, he was building a persona. And online, that was the real currency. He had found his game, and it wasn't just about poker anymore. He transformed himself into a real-life act.
Pre-qualifier, right?
Yeah.
That's like, it checks all those different boxes. It's like, okay, this person is, he's popular, he's looked up to, he's respected, he's, all these, social proofs, right? And so it's one of those things where whether they like it or not, they're going to be affected by it.
That's when his focus shifted, from poker to Instagram. He tried to become an action hero, crafting a life that looked less like reality and more like a movie. Every post was a performance, a statement, and a flex designed to project the ultimate fantasy. The life every man dreamed of living. He became a fantasy, and everyone wanted to see his next move. He called it living the dream, but dreams cost money, and his dream was bleeding cash. So he monetized the persona and turned it into a business: CBD oils, e-cigarettes, vodka, and water. Ignite wasn't just a company, it was a mirror of his movie-like lifestyle. He called it his empire, but insiders whispered a different story of cash burn, mounting debt, and lavish write-offs.
Yeah, but this was different because you're running a publicly traded company.
We fired Curtis, who was our president, and he basically went on a negative press campaign.
And what he said was basically you were using the company as your personal piggy bank, and they flagged nearly $1 million of expenses. So this was stuff like yacht rental, London trip, Star Wars set, bed frame, paintball field, vault.
So a lot of the stuff that he named, I actually paid for. So the yacht, I mean, man, that was like branding. I mean, we had the f***ing goats going front and center in a 300-foot yacht. In a 300-foot yacht with 30 super hot chicks, it's like, life aspirational stuff. And that was kind of the brand that I was building, was a lifestyle brand. So to me, it was like, man, that made a lot of noise.
There had to be something he wasn't showing the world. And the world watched, like they were addicted. Dan had mastered the algorithm. And then, of course, came the questions and the cracks. Because deep down, everyone knew. It was all just too good to be true. In 2020, Ignite posted losses of over $50 million. Shareholders panicked. Analysts raised eyebrows. The party receipts, labeled as marketing. Dan didn't back down, called the lawsuit a joke, and blamed haters. But the regulators weren't laughing. The numbers didn't lie. Ignite was burning cash, and fast. The empire he built on image was now on audit. He fired critics, rewrote the narrative, and promised a comeback. In his mind, he was untouchable, a king under siege, but still a king. He thought he could party his way past the truth, that if he kept the music loud enough, maybe the collapse would stay quiet. But arrogance always shows itself. First in whispers, then in screams. He claimed he lived without regrets. Maybe that's true, but the internet never forgets. And legends, they don't retire, they just go offline.
I know you're not following what I'm saying anyway, right? That's okay, that doesn't matter. The real question is this: is all this legal? Absolutely fucking not.